Previously, I made a video about my I-751 removal of conditions process, talking about my timeline, the requirements I submitted, and also mention about the RFE I received. So that's the reason why I'm making this video today. Hello everyone! Welcome back, and if you're new here, my name is Kenny. I make videos as a Filipina living in America. Quick disclaimer, I am not a professional and all the things that I'll be sharing from this video are based on my experience, and my best advice or recommendation for you guys is to always check the USCIS website for the facts or questions that you might have that I might not be able to answer from this video. So I cannot quite remember the exact date when I received the letter or the notice from USCIS, but under letter it states August 19, 2020, and the reason of the RFE or request for evidence is actually insufficient evidence of good faith in marriage. So let me quickly read the first part of the letter. Important, this notice contains your unique number. The original notice must be submitted with the requested evidence. You are receiving this notice because U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, or USCIS, requires additional evidence to process your form. Please provide the evidence requested below. Include duplicate copies if you are requesting consular notification. Your response must be received in this office by November 14, 2020. Processing of your I-751 will resume upon receipt of your response. If you have not heard from USCIS within 60 days of responding, you may contact the US Contact Center at 1-800-375-5283. So here's what it states on the second part of the letter. You provided the following evidence that the marriage was entered in good faith. This list is actually the one that we submitted during our application for the I-751. So first up is joint income tax returns for 2017 and 2018, copies of pay stubs, airline tickets and boarding passes, copies of driver's licenses and state ID cards, photos, copy of child's birth certificate. However, that documentation submitted is insufficient because although the submitted documents aid in the establishment of a good faith marriage, the submitted documents do not carry enough weight in fulfilling the burden of proof. To establish eligibility for removal of conditions on residence, please submit additional evidence to show you and your spouse entered the marriage in good faith and continue to share a life together. The evidence may include, but is not limited to, the following: children as a result of your marriage, copies of the civilly registered birth certificates for any children born to you and the petitioning spouse, adoption decrees of children adopted by you and or your spouse, court guardianship records of stepchildren, school or medical records listing the step-parent as a contact or guardian, evidence you and your spouse have resided together and shared responsibility for common residence, such as 1. Leases in both names showing joint occupancy, 2. Deeds and mortgages in both names showing joint ownership, or copies of your and your petitioning spouse's driver's licenses and or identity cards from the appropriate state's motor vehicle department. Evidence you and your spouse have combined financial resources or joint ownership of assets and responsibility for liabilities such as checking, savings, or investment account statements showing the transaction pages, property, life, or health insurance documents, federal and state tax returns including relevant schedules, and attachments such as W-2 records, preferably with evidence of filing with the Internal Revenue Service or IRS, or other tax documentation demonstrating actual filings submitted to the IRS, utility bills, or loan or credit card account statements. Evidence you and your spouse made state, health, financial, planning arrangements with each other such as a will, trust, or durable power of attorney for health or property or both. Affidavits from Third parties who have knowledge of the bona fides of your marital relationship that 1. Show the affiant's full name, address, date, and place of birth, and 2. Include detailed information about how the affiant acquired first-hand knowledge of your marital relationship. Affiants may be required to testify before an immigration officer regarding the affidavit's content. Any other relevant documents not already mentioned, please do not send copies of documents previously submitted. And it also states here, military-specific evidence that may be submitted. You or your spouse is in the military, you may be able to submit these documents as well. I'm not gonna be reading all of this, but and at the end of the RFE letter, it says, place the attached cover sheet and this entire letter on top of your response. Submission of evidence without the cover sheet and this letter will delay processing of your case and may result in a denial. Sincerely, the Director of Texas Service Center. When you receive a RFE, you will have to expect that your case will be on hold or paused until they receive your response. So I believe it's more or less 90 days that they give you to respond for it. I know it also mentions that the cover sheet should be on top of it, the yellow paper, which is the one I'm reading right now. But the reason why I was able to read all these things that was mentioned on the RFE letter that I received was because I scan copy it. So as you can see here, I have a copy. I scanned this one, but the original copy of this letter is actually submitted together with my response on top of everything else. So the process will be delayed if you're actually not gonna be including this cover sheet on top of your documents with the response. On the 4th page of the notice or RFE letter is the actual cover page or cover sheet that you'll be submitting together with your RFE response. So it says here which address you're gonna be submitting the documents, and this should be on the very top of it. So now let's move on to what we submitted in response to the RFE notice. Like every process, you will have to create a checklist of the documents that you're planning to submit to USCIS. And after you create that checklist, you also have to make a cover letter that explains in an organized way the documents that you are submitting to them as a response to the RFE. The cover letter is actually signed by my husband, especially if you're filing joint with the petitioner. On our cover letter, it starts with the header, my husband's name or the petitioner's full name, address, and then contact number. And the next one is the USCIS or TSC Attention RFE or NOID. This is the address that is provided by the USCIS where you're gonna be submitting the RFE response. RE, which stands for regarding, request for evidence response. Then followed by an alien number, which has a receipt number, which is the one that they provided ever since they received your application. And with mine, it starts with SRC and then beneficiary and my full name as the beneficiary. Dear USCIS officer, in response to your request for evidence, I'm submitting the following supporting evidence as requested to show that we entered a marriage in good faith and continue sharing a life together. As I go with the cover letter or the list on the cover letter, this is how I also arranged the documents or the paperwork that I submitted. So first is the original RFE, second are the evidence and or statements of good faith marriage. So on this one is really like the actual documents or paperwork that I submitted. First up is evidence of good faith marriage. Copies of transactions history from www.venmo.com, and I stated here the explanation. We do not have a joint debit or checking account as we have been using an application called Venmo. Attached are screenshot copies of transactions between me and my wife since 2018 until the present day to show that we share financial responsibilities. It may not be the traditional way, but we find this effective for the both of us because of the convenience it provides. Through this app, we send funds for all financial responsibility we are sharing. Then we transfer those funds to our individual checking accounts. We also put here like the actual, like what are those documents that we're submitting to support this explanation. So one is copies of our bank statements of the past 3 months showing that we do both have individual banks, and a copy of credit card joint users certification. We do have a joint credit card account, but we don't have a joint debit card or checking account, and that's why we provided instead the Venmo transaction history. You know, as a millennial or as a millennial couple, we've been using that that application, and it's very easy and convenient, as you know it. We did not went with a traditional route of how we would method of sharing financial responsibility, but for us it works, so that's what we submitted. Under residence, it explained here that on March 2016, my wife arrived in USA, and since then our family has been living together with my mother, who owns the residential property. We can't provide utility bills under our names, as these are also under her name as the owner of the residence. However, attached are copies of one of our utility bills of the recent 3 months as proof we are all living in the same residence, and screenshot copy of Amazon shipping name and address. Even though we did not have the utility bills under our names, still, because we are living with my mother-in-laws anyway, we still provided the utility bills under her name, which makes sense, you know, like you don't have to change anything. For me, it's better that you're being honest instead of like showing proof or changing some documents or information on an account just to prove that this and that, you know. It's better to just provide what you have and be honest, and I highly suggest to provide explanation of that. That's why we have a cover letter that explains all the documents we're submitting. And obviously, I think most of us here have Amazon Prime, and with that I submitted screenshots of the shipping name and address, and obviously both our names are over there. For me, I think that helps as well to show that we are living together. And the next is copy of apartment application profile. So in August 2020, we made plans of moving out, but we canceled our application after we thought it thoroughly that it would be best for the safety of our family to wait it out until this pandemic ends. And if you can remember from the RFE notice, they mentioned that you can actually provide statements from third party or third-party affidavit. So that's what we did. We provided 3 letters, affidavits from 3 different people that we know and who knows us as a couple. So first one is a written statement from my mother-in-law, and the second one, written statement from my cousin, and the third one is a written statement from a family friend. Ending part of the letter: thank you in advance for your assistance in this matter. Please do not hesitate to contact us. So it has to be signed by the petitioner if you're filing joint. This is how I assembled the response for the RFE. First is the yellow RFE cover page from the USCIS RFE notice. It has the location or address where you're gonna be sending the response to. Second is the cover letter, your table of contents, or the list that also explains the documents that you are submitting. And third are the documents, the evidences, the paperwork that supports the explanation on your cover letter. And this should be in order according or based on your cover letter that you created. The last but not the least, I also included the G1145 e-notification form so that I will get an update via text or email once they receive the RFE response. So yes, my removal of conditions request for evidence response was sent via FedEx Priority overnight on September 11, 2020. And September 15, 2020, I received a notification from my case tracker that USCIS has finally received my RFE response packet, and they're gonna be resuming the process. And by December 14, 2020, I received a notification from my case tracker that USCIS has finally approved my case. And then on the 16th of the same month last year, they mailed a new card, and December 22nd, 2020 is when I finally received the physical 10 years green card. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. I hope this is helpful for you in your process. And yeah, let's try to avoid the RFE, because you know, it will just make our process longer. It's gonna delay and it's no fun. Good luck to your process. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys on my next one. Bye!